In this video, I'm going to run you through everything you need to know that happened in FP3 and qualifying in Monaco from a driver, coach, and mentor's point of view. If you're interested in what my thoughts are, definitely keep watching. Welcome back to the channel, guys. My name is Martin. I'm a specialist technical coach and mentor for open formula drivers. Let's start with FP3, and Lewis Hamilton was the only one to break our famous street circuit rule. Those of you guys new to the channel, the street circuit rule basically says any little hiccup in practice before qualifying, and when qualifying is very important on these tracks, and an accident or crash is going to cost you a lot in terms of repair and confidence, then it's just not something you want to be doing. You want to keep the car out of the wall and keep the confidence high. Remember, you've got to build the confidence throughout the weekend, and you want to reach peak confidence in qualifying. Is Lewis Hamilton going to reach peak confidence in qualifying after that little hiccup at Massenet? Probably not. Now, I hope for his sake that there's not a gearbox change moving into qualifying. That is, that the rear is damaged and I have to change it and take a 5-place penalty. I hope not, because I want to see how this impacts his confidence, whether or not it does impact it or whether or not he can just get back in the car and get straight back on it. But surely we're all human. Surely that he's just... there's going to be a bit of a, it just takes you back a little notch into qualifying. That's not something you want to do around Monaco. So everything was going well up to that point. I actually had on my notes to say what a good job everyone did to keep it out of the wall in FP3 and move into qualifying with peak confidence. Not Lewis Hamilton. A bit of oversteer on the entry to mid-corner in Massenet, and there's no room, like no runoff. The moment you put in a little bit of opposite lock, you're going to absorb that space, and he's clobbered the wall, both the right front and the right rear, a little bit of damage. I wanted to talk to you guys in this video as well, just before we go into qualifying, about some focus areas for lap time. There's probably 3 focus areas that I wanted to talk to. The first is turn 1. I believe there is a tenth and a half at least in turn 1, because if you get it right, you've got that decent run up the hill as well towards Massenet where Hamilton crashed. So it's an important corner. And then the other 2 important corners that I was watching in FP3 were the swimming pool chicane and Rascasse. We're going to go through all these corners in detail now. I'm going to try to give you guys an insight into where I think the opportunities are and where the lap time will be. Let's start with turn 1. And I think the biggest opportunity is that corner curb. Just hitting it in the right place with the unloaded inside front tire and shortcutting that part for a nice straight exit where you can really nail the throttle with the steering wheel open and straight. I think that's the biggest opportunity in turn 1. If you go around it, then you're going around the long way around. If you take too much of it, then it's going to bump and unsettle the car. It's going to delay the point at which you can get onto throttle. So just clipping it in the right way and keeping the car settled and stable and so such that the car can resettle on the exit, I think is the way to go. Every car is going to have their own intricacies as to how they do this, and every driver's steering rate is also, going to impact how compliant the car is. But I think finding a solution there at turn 1 is one of the opportunities. The second opportunity I want to talk to you about was the swimming pool. I'll bring it up on the whiteboard now. It might be easier for me to explain to you guys. So we'll start with the swimming pool. And I think the biggest opportunity is just as you come through to not go right to the edge of the racetrack, that is over here, and just stay sort of 3/4 track. The reason I say that is because it gives you an opportunity to now straighten the steering wheel here and just have a nice, flat, stable car on the entry into the swimming pool chicane. That's very important, because what you want to do at this point is just start introducing the car to the turn. You don't want to go a little bit further ahead and then turn a lot, because then you're committed. You're all in on the corner. And if it's right, great. And if it's wrong, you've got no scope or margin from which to manipulate the car on the entry. So just by introducing it very early on at this point, that's helpful, and it allows you to just come and see the corner. And then if you need to add more, you can always add more later on. But it's very difficult to do that if you are, let's say, in green at the edge of the track, and then you have to pick a point. This point is very important. You pick that point to turn in. Now, the other reason that I think this is a good way to go is, again, you're using less steering, and so your angle is shallower, which means the car is ready for that next hand direction change. Whereas I just feel like if you come out wide and put a bigger armful of lock in, you cut underneath this line and you've got more work to do. That is, you're holding more right-hand residual steering lock and now you've got to go the other way. So you've got to undo all of that right-hand steering lock, and that just takes more work. And it's not like just a cut through of the chicane as quickly as possible. You're not straight lining the corner. You're just driving extra meters and driving around for no extra benefit here. So it's not like you can carry in additional speed from that outer position. I think mid-track, gentle introduction of steering, just making sure that the car's ready for that compliant turn in. And then, yeah, with the direction change, it's really important as well, because you need a quick switch of hands to unload the left front tire to get into that curb. So I hope that helps you guys. Keep an eye out for that for qualifying as well. Now, I wanted to talk to you guys as well about the Rascasse corner. Again, I think there are some opportunities for lap time here. You've got two options, the tight line and, of course, the short corner as well. Now, the short corner, remember, it's similar to a V-shape. The short corner philosophy is that you're fast in and you're fast out, and your rotation point is very condensed. So it's going to look something like that. Whereas the tight line says, well, you dive into the apex early, you claim the time on entry, and you work out the exit later. So let's have a look at how these two lines would look. If we just start with the short corner, the whole philosophy is that you do your rotation out a little bit wider. And again, similar to this drawing that I've done here on the right, you're fast in, wind the steering on very quickly and get the steering wheel straight for the exit so that you can put your foot down. So you'll come in, but I think crucially here, you're aiming more for that side of the track. Again, you want to open up the corner and do the whole V situation. You're not aiming to dive in like that very shallow, for example. So then you carry on like this, and your eyes are here to do the short corner, and you want to come out wide and do the short corner like that. Now, the whole point is that once the car's straight, and that's before the apex of the corner, bang, you're home and away, and you can just put the throttle down. Now, the tight line says something different. It's more of a deviation from this point, and it says, okay, we're just going to dive into the corner. We're going to claim the apex very early. We will be fastest up to this point. But then because the car's still got steering lock in it, it's hard to actually get on throttle, and you need to maintain that steering lock as you go for the throttle. So I feel like by diving in early, you find yourself a little bit pinched at the apex. That is, you can't just release the car off the corner like the green short corner driver can. So who was driving these lines? Max was doing the green, the short corner, a little bit wider, cranking the steering lock on. Again, everything you see in the bottom right over here, cranking the steering lock on, Ving, squaring off the corner, and then blasting through towards the last corner, Anthony knows. And Charles was diving in very early, claiming the apex. Yes, you're faster to the apex, but whether or not you pay for that on the exit is the big question. I'll show you guys an image now on the screen where we can compare these two drivers. So hopefully you can see that on the screen in front of you. This is a similar point in the track as what I could give you. So if you use this pedestrian crossing as your reference here, hopefully the cars are at the same point in the track. And what I want to highlight to you is the line difference. So if you look at the right front tire, you're pretty much staring here at Charles and this Pirelli sign here. So again, Charles hasn't given himself much room here for which to carry speed into this corner. Remember, you want to add the steering, wind it on, and carry the speed in, and the whole short corner philosophy. And then, on the exit, go for it. So we said Charles is taking the tight line here, claiming the apex early, diving in. The question is how is he going to get on the throttle, and how is he going to straighten this car up? Whereas what Max is doing is leaving a little bit of space, right? And absorbing that space with the steering, going out a little bit wider. You see Max much closer to the Pirelli sign on the left here as compared to what Charles is. And I just feel like Max is out wider, doing a more V style. And once he gets through this section, Max can open the steering and just nail the throttle. So we should also have a look at the telemetry so that I can show you guys, and you guys know the right technique in the Rascasse. For the avoidance of doubt, I think Max's is better. You can be a lot more consistent with Max's line. And I just think it allows for a faster in, faster out approach, short corner technique. Now, if we just look at the practice telemetry together, and we grab Verstappen's 11.2 and Charles's 10.9, well, Charles is 0.3 quicker on this lap, right? But actually what you'll notice is that in that final part of the lap, the delta fades away more towards Max. They go into Rascasse with Max 0.3 behind, and they finish with Max 2.71. And I know that you might think, well, that's not much, but in a track like Monaco where qualifying is key, and in a sport told in tenths, no hundredths, no thousandths of a second, this surely matters. So that my focus is that the delta was falling away towards the end of the lap here. And I want to highlight to you guys the difference in technique. So let's click on the entry to Rascasse. And again, I'll just zoom in a little bit more so we get the full picture. So this speed here is driving and accelerating to Rascasse. So I'll go back to the whiteboard and show you guys where we are. This is here coming into the Rascasse. This is where the telemetry is. This is where this white line is here at the moment. And then they brake for the Rascasse. And I guess the key part is have a look at the throttle, the way they can apply it out of the Rascasse. So Charles, he doesn't have the confidence to put down as much throttle. Yes, he gets on throttle earlier because remember, Charles has dived into the apex earlier. He's there earlier. His corner is over and done with earlier, but he can't put the throttle down as hard as Max. If I zoom in on that section here, Max gets to 96% throttle before Anthony Node's final corner, and Leclerc gets to 84% throttle. Leclerc's is a lot more like linear because he can't. He's got steering on at this point. And Max can go for it a little bit harder, steeper throttle gradient. Have a look at the braking as well. You see Max braking later in the corner, braking deeper. So he's extending the straight coming in, he's extending the straight going out. And the result in lap time is very similar here, which I think is a win for Max because he's not in, like he's lost 0.3 to Leclerc on this lap. So I think if we go heading into the Rascasse, which is here, the delta is 317. And if we go just before braking, it's 306. So Max has found a few hundredths in this section. But then if we go through anti-nodes, and this is really important, the speed that Max is carrying in anti-nodes is worth a little bit of downforce and grip. So Max is 125 before the final corner, and Leclerc is 115. So Max is coming in with an extra 10 Ks. Now the car performs a little bit better with that extra 10 kilometers. You can carry a little bit more speed into the final corner as well. So by extending the straight coming in and coming out, the result of it all is that Max has found half a tenth before Rascasse to the finish line. Max has found half a tenth of a second there. So I wanted to highlight to you guys the difference in the two techniques, how it looks on the telemetry, again with the whiteboard, the short corner versus the tight line, and the pros and cons for both. Now the big talking point going into qualifying will be, do you use the C6, the very soft, ultra soft, or do you use the C5, that next step slightly harder? At this point, before we head into quali, I'm thinking the C5. The reason being, out of the 3 areas of lap time that I've called out to you guys, turn 1 is one of them, but then there's 2 at the back end of the track. I think that swimming pool chicane and Rascasse, and probably Anthony Nodes, the last corner as well. Those are the 3 opportunities I feel like there's more to be gained at the back of the track than there is to be gained at the front of the track, driving uphill towards Massenet, the Lowe's hairpin, for example. I think you need a tire alive and well in the final sector. So at this point, my prediction, my best guess is I'd probably do my final run or first run even in qualifying in Q3, because remember, you might only get 1 run. So I'd be doing that on the C5 compound tire. Now, it was interesting as well, just as we wrap up the practice session, Leclerc comes on the radio to his engineer, Brian Bosley, says, "Hey, Brian, who did you say crashed again?" And Brian replies, "It was Lewis at turn 3. And this is a classic example of the race engineers not really giving the right information to Charles. Here's an opportunity for Brian to give a little bit more color to what happened to protect his driver, Charles, if this was, say, in the heat of a qualifying session or going into qualifying, or the Leclerc can't come in and talk to him, for example. If the timing was not such, I don't think it's sufficient to say it was Lewis at turn 3. Give a little bit more color, give a little bit more flavor. It was Lewis at turn 3. What happened? He got a bit of entry oversteer in the middle. He counter-steered and corrected into it and hit both right-hand tires on the right wall. Just so you know, Charles, that's what happened in our car, the other car. Be careful of that, or keep that in mind when you're talking and doing your debrief. I think Brian missed an opportunity there to give a little bit more information to Charles, crucial information going into qualifying. A quick look at the results together, topped by Leclerc with the 10.9 and Verstappen the 11.3. We just looked at their telemetry. Leclerc fastest first sector, Norris fastest middle and Leclerc fastest in the final sector as well. So we got a bit of a spread there. McLaren car, both cars up there. Hamilton, obviously with that accident, he did an 11.5 before that, which is not too bad. The Williams up there this weekend as well, and Mercedes nowhere. I thought they'd be a lot better. Just due to their traction capabilities of that car. But I guess this track's more speaking to the front end mechanical stiffness and grip of the car. Colapinto again still struggling today. Following on from yesterday, we'll follow his progress into qualifying as well. The Q1 session was characterized by Kimi Antonelli's crash down at the Nouvelle Chicane. It was very similar to Isaac Hadjar's that happened yesterday on Friday in practice, except Isaac Hadjar hit this kind of corner apex wall with the left rear. Kimi Antonelli hit it in Q1 with the left front. Very easily done, guys. Like, I'm not going to lay blame here and say like Antonelli's just made a clumsy mistake here. The reason that it's easily done is because, like I said on Thursday in the live stream, there are corners where the apex is the wall and the wall is the apex. And so hitting the apex means hitting the wall. And so you've got to go against your natural driver instincts to not hit the apex, because you don't want to hit the wall. You've got to actually go around the apex. And so that's I know it sounds like a very basic thing, but Kimi's actually hit the apex here, really nicely turned into this corner. But it's just one of those corners as well where it's a short apex. So it's not a long corner, like Massenet, for example, where you don't have time to add steering or take out steering or play with your rotation point. Similar to Rascasse, like we drew before, you can play with your line. In this particular case, once you've turned and committed to the corner, you only find out how you went once you hit that 90-degree apex. And so Kimi didn't have enough time to work it out. So I do feel sorry for him, but look, it's not the end of the world. I don't think Mercedes had much pace, unfortunately, this weekend anyway. The Q1 results are in front of you, topped again by Leclerc with the fastest first sector. We spoke about Saint-Devote turn 1, and I think Leclerc's generally been taking that corner the best this weekend, just doing a good job with the curb, getting on throttle nicely, good traction, and good on the direction change between 3 and 4, Massenet and Casino as well. But probably the biggest call out is that the Alpine cars had just had no pace this weekend. So we're looking at the 11.9, which meant Gasly got kicked out in P18, and Colapinto with the 12.5. That's not a bad recovery from Franco in terms of the lap time deficit between yesterday and today. He's 12.5. He's on pace there with Stroll. He closed that gap from a second yesterday to his teammate to now half a second. So that's promising and better. And most of it seems to be in the middle sector where he's losing most of the time compared to his teammate. So like, some positives to take away. It's not the end of the world. I think it would be different if Gasly was up there fighting in the top 10, but it's not the case. And so the drivers kicked out in Q1 were Bortoleto, Behrman, Gasly, Stroll, Colapinto, and Behrman will start last after his 10-place penalty for overtaking under red flags in practice. In Q2, the biggest story for me was it was the first session where we could finally draw a line between the C5 versus the C6. A few of the drivers were trying the C5, that is the yellow striped medium tire, and it just wasn't giving the same lap time as the C6. So I think in that session, we learned that we could rule it out. I thought that it might be the way to go. I thought that in Imola as well, but for whatever reason, track characteristics, track length, load on the tires, temperature, all of these things matter. I think we could rule it out in this session. And George Russell was the other big story, parking up just at the tunnel with some sort of engine battery issue. So that meant that him and Kimi Antonelli occupied, I think it was 14 and 15. I'll bring up the results in a second. But that meant that you only had to be outside the bottom 3 in this session in order to jump through. One other call out I really noticed in this session was Oscar Piastri's struggle with traction. It didn't seem like an issue with the car per se to me. It seemed more like Oscar was just asking for the throttle too much and too early on in the corner as well. We got a good shot as he came through Rascasse corner, and he wasn't even like through the rotation point when he starts introducing the throttle early and hard. And I'm not sure if it's an eagerness piece or that's just his normal technique. But what I would have encouraged Oscar to be doing if I picked it up on Friday or was working would be like, delay when you go for the throttle. Make sure the car is around the corner and straight when you go for that throttle. And when you do go for it from low speed with downforce not significantly active in a corner like Rascasse, just, gently get the car walking. But So yeah, it was just interesting to see. Like, I'm not here to coach Oscar on how to put the throttle down. He knows that. But the reason I'm calling it out is because I saw it the whole weekend. I saw it turn one, Rascasse sliding out of Mirabeau. Actually, there was another shot. He's sliding out of Mirabeau, which is turn five. He couldn't get out of Portier very well. The Nouvelle Chicane, like all of the traction zones, Oscar's been struggling all weekend. So yeah, it's just waiting a little bit, introducing it more gently, and or playing with the throttle mapping as well, whether his throttle comes in really aggressively or he needs to just dial it back in the initial phase and make it come on more exponentially. Anyway, I just thought I'd call that out as an area where Oscar might have had to focus a little bit more if he was going to fight and compete proper for the Q3 pole position. Now, I wanted to show to you guys Oscar's Q2 mistake here. If we just look at the telemetry, now before the Rascasse, they're actually equal, if not Oscar slightly ahead here. And the lap ends 3/10 in Lando Norris's favor because of that mistake out of the Rascasse with Oscar going for the throttle too early. I want to show that to you guys here and show you what's going on. So this little white peak here versus the orange peak is Oscar going for the throttle. And we spoke about him going for it too early and too hard. Speak about early, that's where you can see it. Like Oscar's throttle is coming in and Lando's not done his corner yet. He's waiting, and then he can just put it down with the steering wheel a little bit straighter. So if you look at the brake trace as well, what you should notice is that Lando's braking later into the corner. I guess he's following more like Max's style, and Oscar braking early and getting on throttle early. The problem with that is the car's not straight at that point. And so I don't like that early throttle introduction from Oscar, and it's losing him time that whole way. So he's got to, just, I guess, go deeper into the corner, target a later apex, do a later rotation, just make sure the steering wheel is nice and straight on the exit, and then you can go for the throttle. So the Q2 results then in front of you, obviously, like I say, Russell parked up and Antonelli in the wall. That meant that these three drivers were the slowest three of the 13 that went out. So it was Hulkenberg on the 11.5. Tsunoda, the car didn't have good pace. Even Verstappen struggling to get into the top 5 or top 10, etc. And Carlos Sainz as well. Now, Carlos Sainz really struggling relative to Alex Albon. He mentioned on the radio struggling to switch on the compounded tyre. I don't really buy that. I mean, come on, like surely that's all sorted by now. But anyway, it is what it is, and Carlos Sainz was out. Obviously, he just wasn't comfortable with the car this weekend. Now, look, a quick shout out to Esteban Ocon jumping into the top 10 and getting his car into Q3. That's a mega effort, right? When Behrman was out in Q1 on the 11.9, here you've got Ocon doing the 11.2. I did hear his mentality and his approach to this weekend in the Thursday media pen session, and I want to play that to you guys now as well, because it certainly aligns with my philosophy of building yourself a weekend and the value that can give you in a track like Monaco. And just as I glance at the results in Q2, it's no surprise to see Norris and Leclerc ahead of their teammates at this point, Piastri and Hamilton, both who put it in the wall at some point this weekend. But anyway, let me just play for you this Esteban Ocon piece.
Yeah, it's important to build up, slowly and, unleash everything you have, at the right moment, which is qualifying. If you take a step back, it's difficult to recover from it. And this is what you always need to do.
Yeah, bravo Esteban, saying like know when to unleash the pace, build up to it. Exactly what we've been saying on this channel. Here he finds himself in Q3. So good job, Esteban. I fully support that approach, and that was a professional mindset, and he got rewarded for it, potentially points tomorrow. So good job, Esteban. So the Q3 results then, it's Lando Norris on pole. He did build himself a good weekend, didn't he? There was a few lockups in practice, and we called him out for that, as locking up, I think, at turn 1, Nouvelle Chicane potentially as well. But he did not touch the walls at all this weekend. So good job, Lando Norris. Built himself a weekend, built his confidence, and he was there when it counts. Likewise, Charles Leclerc built himself a solid weekend, didn't stick it in the wall like his teammate Hamilton did in FP3, fought and compete the best he could for pole. P2's on the cards for Leclerc. So good job for both of those guys. I think those are the two. Like, it's no surprise to me, having watched and tried to give you guys a philosophy and a mindset going into the Monaco Grand Prix. It's no surprise to see that Lando took pole and Leclerc got second in front of their respective teammates, Piastri, the 10.1, and Hamilton, the 10.3. Now, it's at this point where we say, well, what impact actually did those accidents have? Now, Oscar's was down at turn one, just very slightly locked up the brakes down at turn one and very gently into the wall, lost his front wing yesterday. Now, what impact did that have on him? I mean, it's very hard to say that's the reason why he didn't get pole. It's not, but these things don't help. These things, we don't know how much he would have thought about that. Did he just wake up in the morning and crack on and fight and compete for pole? We don't know. Or did he think, oh, what happened there? And am I good enough? You know, like there's just, I guess what I'm saying is like it's worth something. It's not worth nothing. Like it's just very hard to pretend that that didn't happen. And again, when Monaco's told in tenths, no hundredths, no thousandths of a second, this surely matters, right? It's worth something. Now Hamilton's was, I think, a bit more case in point, like obvious. Clearly, the oversteer moment in Massenet in the wall at turn 3, both the right-hand side of the car, the mechanics had to rebuild the car. That one's a bigger one. And just as I bring up the results again, you know, out of the top 4, it's Hamilton behind Piastri. Again, and there's a gap there as well, right? Piastri's accident, small impact. Hamilton, bigger accident, bigger impact. So Piastri's only a 10th off pole, but he's 3/10 ahead of Hamilton. Hamilton's 4/10 off pole. So again, you're asking yourself the question, like Piastri's still got one of the fastest sectors. Hamilton showing nothing. So again, you're asking yourself the question, did that play on Lewis's mind? Did that impact his confidence? To what extent? And so on. I think he was always destined for the back of the best 4 cars after that FP3 accident happened. Now that we look at the Q3 results, Ocon managed to steal P8 in the end. Wow, good job, Esteban. Happy with that. So that's, you know, 2/10 clear of Lawson, and a good job by the V-Carbs as well, and Alonso. Like everyone's done a good job here, some better than others. Albon really fell back. Not sure what happened there, whether or not he didn't get, you know, he made a mistake or whatever. One thing I want to call out at this point is that Hamilton only had one brand new set of the C6 softest compound tire and chose to use it in the latter stages of Q3. Now, given what we know about Monaco, how we brought it up in the live stream on Thursday, that you might only get one initial run in Q3, and then your final run might get, maybe someone's in the wall and red flagged. I thought that was risky by Ferrari to not just give him the new tire and give him the opportunity to just for sure get that new tire in the bank. They didn't do that. They sent him out on the scrub set first, and then luckily no one stuck it in the wall in Q3. He did get the opportunity to run the new compound tire, but I just feel like they got away with it there because there are the chances of red flags, as you see, right, in Q1 and Q2 and in Q3 in general in Monaco are fair. So I think Lewis got away with that, and he was lucky to get his final lap in with that new compound tire. Verstappen did his best. I mean, as you can see, the 2 McLarens and the 2 Ferraris, Verstappen, you can bet your bottom dollar was extracting the most out of the car as well. So good job by Max. But I think again we got to come back to Lando and say what an awesome job for him this is, and what a lift for his confidence this will be as well. Yes, Monaco will be worth 25 points if he can win it, but for Lando's confidence, who we know has been lacking. You know, when we talk about mentality and confidence and mindset, you can't say it in the same sentence as not mentioning Lando's lack thereof. So I think if he can get it over the line tomorrow, notwithstanding all the strategic stuff that's going to go on, Monaco win will be great for him, great for his confidence, and he can kind of, you know, kickstart and fire up his championship campaign moving forward. I want to browse the telemetry and see the difference between Norris and Leclerc, just where their laps was won and lost in the fight for pole. So let's have a look at that together for the first time. Oh, Leclerc had it for most of the lap. Look at that. And there we go. He lost it in the Did he lose it in the Rascasse with that line? Come on, Charles. Don't tell me. Don't tell me it's true, guys. He did. Wow. He lost it in the Rascasse, guys. So there you go. Like that tight line that Charles is taking into the Rascasse is not the way to go. In fact, I go as far as to say it cost him pole. Now, what I'm looking at for you guys that I might be 2 or 3 steps ahead of you here, Leclerc's delta is underneath Lando's for most of this lap. As he's coming out of the tunnel, I'm watching the red line underneath Norris's reference line, and it only goes slightly over towards the end, and that whole section is the Rascasse, and we spoke about that, and I'll bring it up on the screen now. And we spoke about that in FP3. This is Leclerc taking a shallow line into the Rascasse. It limits how much speed you can carry in and out of the corner. It'll get you to the yellow Apex Pirelli sign first, which is over here, sure. But Max demonstrating, I think, the correct and better way to take Rascasse. The short corner, the V line, faster in, faster out, braking later, get on throttle earlier, harder, faster, steering wheel straighter, everything like that. It's so interesting to see that in the telemetry, this is where it's gone wrong for Charles. Let's zoom in a little bit more and just clarify exactly. Okay, so this is the speed before braking at the Rascasse. And yeah, Lando's just able to carry a higher minimum speed. Lando's 65 at the apex of Rascasse, but Leclerc drops down to 61. And Lando, again, you see, like similar to what we spoke about with Max, Lando, when he goes for the throttle, he can put it on harder, faster, and it shoots up here to 80%, which is not near where Max got to, actually. Max got to 96 between here and the final corner anti-nodes, but it's this little area of throttle where Lando's is higher than Charles, which is helpful. But a lot of it on the way in as well. We see Lando braking later, and on the way into the corner, when the speed drops off, Lando's just done a better job in that area, braking later into that corner, and that's where it got away from Leclerc. So look, again, guys, another example, and if I were working with Charles, we would have spotted that on the onboard. Like, you don't need the telemetry, or you just need the eye for what's right and what's wrong, and where the grip is and isn't, and how best to take the corner. I think Leclerc was just too tight in the Rascasse, and it's a shame, and I'm spending time on this because, you know, there are points in this lap where Leclerc's 0.3 ahead of Lando. So like, it could have been a smashing. It could have been a home pole easily, but yeah. Now look, whether or not he ran out of tires and he went for it in the first part of the lap and used them up, or I'm not sure, but you know, knowing what I know about the lines and the Rascasse and so on, you know, I'm not surprised to see that Leclerc lost lap time there and ultimately lost pole there. Now, look, looking ahead to the start and the strategy, I don't expect any dramas off the start. I think the McLaren's good off the line. Lando hasn't got far to go to just take the lead and you know, begin to control this race. As for the strategy, like, I honestly, guys, I haven't thought about it heaps. I mean, I'm sure the engineers like the Hannah Schmitz et al. Are going to be doing the calculations overnight, and it's going to be, what happens if these cars pit early? What happens if we pit early twice? I think the key for the front runners is just to build yourself a gap. You know, if you've got the pace like the Norrises and Leclercs, build yourself a gap, a pit stop worth, and then you don't really need to worry about, you know, what can go wrong. But how that throws a spanner in the works is because normally Monaco is very conservative in the sense that if you've got the lead, you just need to go around and look after your tires and not take too many risks, and, you know, not push too hard and just play the percentage game. Whereas tomorrow it's going to be very different. Lando and Charles, I think, need to build themselves a gap just in case this whole strategy thing, this whole two-stop, you know, doesn't work in their favor. Having that gap would be helpful. So at one point they're going to have to build that gap. They're going to have to get on with it. And will there be a mistake there, maybe, with the full tanks and the harder tires and them trying to build the gap? You know, hopefully not. Hopefully Lando can just still get into the rhythm and trust the pace of the car, and over a long enough time scale and enough laps, that gap will form. But that's the difference, I guess, between, you know, the old Monaco and the new one. We do have a live stream just before the race, guys. We're going to talk about Quali, see what happens, sit down, bring a drink. We'll take a little Q&A. Yeah, we'll go over some of the technique in the Rascasse together. Something very informal, something I haven't done before on the channel. It's not a preview, technical preview per se. It's just to catch up, guys. So I hope to see you there. Again, thank you so much for watching. On your way out, please leave me a comment. Give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe to this channel if you're new here. All of these things help me push the channel forward. And I hope that if you do like my work, then that's one way you can show your appreciation. Thank you so much. I'll see you tomorrow.